Okay, we're going live. Namaste and welcome, beloved mighty companions.
Namaste y bienvenidos, amados compañeros.
I was thinking tonight, the signs of spiritual awakening.
Y hoy estaba mirando las etapas del viaje espiritual.
Oh my gosh, it's so hilarious. I just started typing today and just hearing what was coming through.
Y comencé a escribir cuando me comenzó a llegar y le ha llegado todo eso.
I thought, I don't know what Jesus is going to say about this because I don't think, is there that much to say about it?
Y yo creo que no hay mucho que decir porque siento que no hay mucho que decir, pero...
It's like 13 pages so far.
Son como 13 páginas.
Now, we are going to translate it into Spanish, and I'm going to give you a little kind of a sneak preview. We're working on it. I'm working on it.
Vamos a trabajar en ello, pero vamos a tomar algunos como puntos particulares.
And I could see, like, in the beginning of this whole journey, you just want to, that you want to have all kinds of ideas. Okay, what is it going to be like?
Y cuando comenzamos este camino, esta jornada, comenzamos a imaginarnos cómo va a ser.
And then we all go to school and we get tested, so we got to do the test for spiritual awakening. So you're going to all be tested.
Y tenemos que hacer la prueba del despertar.
And, there are a lot of like videos and that kind of thing on the internet. I really haven't watched too many of them about the signs of awakening. So I can only go by what I'm being told by Jesus, really, for me.
Y hay muchos videos en YouTube, en Internet, que hablan del despertar espiritual, pero yo no las he mirado porque simplemente le he preguntado a Jesús lo que hay para mí.
Because the only interest that I have is, what's most helpful for healing the mind?
Porque siempre le pregunto qué es lo más útil para la sanación de la mente.
So I can add that.
Y ahora puedo tener esto.
And so, but I'm going to go through some of these, but you'll see where it's all headed to, okay? And you can skip a bunch of steps if you're willing to just do a few things, okay?
Y bueno, vamos a ir a través de todo este documento, pero ustedes pueden incluso evadir algunos temas si ustedes siguen lo más importante.
So look, the first thing is, if you notice and recognize light, that the light is here, the holy instant, you can see there's no steps for that. You just see that there's light, ta-da.
Y si nos damos cuenta que la luz está aquí, reconocemos que la luz está aquí, nos damos cuenta que no hay ningún paso para ello.
Okay, now what we know where the complication comes from, of course, is the addiction to everything other than that. That's what creates all the stages,
Y por eso es que creamos todos estos pasos porque queremos que sea así, o sea, porque no se necesitan, sin embargo, queremos que sea así.
So if we do a check-in on infinite light, we see, there's no steps. Look, does the light have a checklist in there going, okay, here's what you have to do to see the light,
Y la luz no tiene una lista de chequeo donde va mirando que se cumplir, porque simplemente la luz está aquí. No hay pasos.
But because we've conditioned ourselves, we've chosen to have experience where consciousness believes that steps actually get it somewhere.
Y como nos condicionamos en la conciencia, entonces creemos que hay unos pasos que nos van a llevar a un lugar, a algo.
Like if I take the right steps, I can get the right job, I can get the right education,
Y si hago las etapas, los pasos, entonces voy a tener el trabajo adecuado, el estudio adecuado.
So then, that's the evaluation function. Consciousness likes to evaluate and judge and weigh everything.
Y esa es la función de evaluar de la conciencia y de juzgar.
Like I told the story about how when I was little and we had 7 kids in the family.
Y les cuento la historia de cuando yo era pequeña y habíamos 7 niños
And
de la misma edad.
my mom would weigh all our snacks out so they were exactly the same weight.
Y mi mamá nos daba los snacks de la misma manera para todos.
And then we'd still go like this. Okay, which one weighs how can I get the bigger share,
Y entonces los pesábamos y comenzamos, bueno, ¿cuál de estos es el de mejor, como la mejor oferta?
So consciousness is a play. I'm trying to get the best deal. Okay, I'm going to get a better deal.
Y la conciencia es eso, como que tratar de lograr el mejor negocio, la mejor negociación.
Look, it'll have a race to spiritual awakening, but that will definitely take you to hell as soon as you're racing to spiritual awakening.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
As soon as you're in a competitive race for awakening, you're going to go right to hell because competition is the road to hell. Okay.
Sí, inmediatamente estamos en esta competencia, en este deseo de competir, estamos yendo directo al infierno.
So, we're used to these steps and stages and what's first and what's second.
Y estamos acostumbrados a estos pasos, a estas etapas, como cuál es el siguiente paso.
And Jesus knows that, or the light, somehow consciousness knows that we're so used to steps. We'll be given steps, okay?
Y Jesús sabe que en la conciencia estamos muy acostumbrados a esos pasos. Entonces Jesús nos va a dar unos pasos.
For a speedy way out, because from the one who knows, he's going to help us.
Y nos va a ayudar uno que sabe, y uno que sabe la vía más rápida.
Okay, so the challenge is not having steps. It's really the willingness to take the steps that are given.
El tema no es los pasos, es la disposición, la voluntad para seguir esos pasos.
It's like, sorry, Jesus, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. I got too much to do.
Y es como, ay, Jesús, mira, no tengo tiempo para esto. Tengo muchas cosas que hacer.
I can't fit these invitations into my schedule. I can't fit. See, it loves that.
Sí, y nos encanta ese, yo no puedo hacer que esto se encaje en mi agenda.
I got things to do.
Tengo cosas que hacer.
So, but there are a few simple principles, again, that if followed, it's very quick. But again, because the play is to be addicted to not being awake, that's what we need steps for.
Y entonces tenemos estos pasos. Ay, los de día.
Okay, waking up is simple.
El despertar es simple.
It's wanting to keep ourselves asleep in the dream that's complicated.
Lo único que es complicado es el deseo de estar dormidos en el sueño.
So that's why we need steps to break the habit, the steps and stages to break that habit of indulging and saying no to enlightenment.
Y entonces tenemos que tener estos pasos, estas etapas para romper el hábito de ser indulgentes con esto.
So again, there aren't, the light's just here. The light's here.
Y porque la luz está aquí, está aquí.
I remember someone said that to me and I said, what do you mean it's here?
Y me recuerdo que alguien me dijo, ¿qué quiere decir que está aquí?
What light?
La luz.
I've laughed around here. I've said, I keep asking Jesus, was I just like the difficult poster child of spiritual awakening or something?
Y esto, Jesús, es como el deseo de que esto sea difícil.
And, and he said, this is how consciousness is just addicted. And we need these steps and these stages so that we don't run away in terror from our own self.
Y entonces, como la mente está adicta, necesitamos estas etapas y estos pasos para que no entremos en terror.
Because in the play of consciousness is to make God going to God or seeing that you're God, the function of ego is to make it seem horrific as possible.
Y la función del ego es hacer que ir a Dios sea horrorífico.
And you might have had that experience when you start to begin to look, you just feel like, God, I'm going to be blown up or annihilated. You know, somehow if I turn and look at this, I'm going to hell for sure.
Es que algo así como si voy a ver esto, entonces voy a ser eliminado, voy a ser disipado, o sea, sí, voy a ir al infierno.
Okay, so
Entonces,
you have to just say no to that and say, I'm going to look anyway. I finally just said, you know, if I blow up or, you know, all of a sudden, just imagine myself on the ceiling.
sí, entonces no importa, vamos a decirle no y vamos a mirar. Y no importa que creamos que vamos a desaparecer.
I just remember this Monty Python, really rude movie, Monty Python, you know how they are, with this guy ate so much that he kind of blew up into pieces. And that's how you feel on the spiritual journey.
Y bueno, hay una película que ya dice que el personaje explota en pedazos. Y así pensamos que es nuestra jornada espiritual, que vamos a explotar, vamos a desaparecer.
All this, you know, steam starts rising and you start looking and you're all mad and you want to kill someone, you know, you just...
Y todo este humo que está saliendo y sientes que estás volviéndote loca, todo esto que está surgiendo en la conciencia.
But the first thing about that is to remember you asked, you wanted to see things another way. You want to see the world different from when you started.
Y entonces tú tienes que preguntar, y porque tú quieres ver el mundo de una manera diferente.
Okay, you wanted, and then, but when he brings it to our attention, we're all ticked off. We get all mad about.
Pero entonces tienes que sentir ver toda esa tensión que surge.
So we want to remember that Jesus says you cannot judge your advances from your retreats. You can't judge those.
Y tenemos que recordar que Jesús nos dice que no podemos juzgar nuestros avances por nuestros retrocesos.
That's why it's so valuable to learn how to listen to that voice. You can ask that voice, am I releasing or holding? That is the only thing that matters. Am I releasing this concept or am I trying to hang on to it somehow?
Y entonces por eso es tan importante escuchar la voz y preguntarle, Jesús, ¿estoy reteniendo o estoy liberando? Eso es lo único que es importante.
So, you know, you may recognize some of these. We'll call them more or less stages, okay?
Nosotros los llamamos más etapas.
And I'll share my screen just for a moment, not long, because I don't have this translated into Spanish, but I want to just give you the layout.
Bueno, les voy a, no lo tengo transcrito al español, pero les voy a decir como los puntos claves.
Okay, there I am talking right now. Okay, now we're going to come over here, right there. Okay, so it's a little, you know, if you find it valuable, it was helpful for me, actually. Okay.
Y esto fue valioso para mí, si ustedes lo consideran importante.
So we're going to make this available to everyone. We're going to translate it for the Spanish.
Lo vamos a hacer, tener disponible para todos y lo vamos a traducir al español.
So we talk about, here's a stage.
Entonces aquí están las etapas.
Here are some of the steps, signs, and symbols.
Uno de los pasos, las señales y los símbolos.
Okay, here are the impediments to transcending that stage.
Y aquí los impedimentos para trascender esos pasos.
And then here's some remedies. Here's like the antidote. We might call this here's some antidotes for this.
Y estos son los remedios, los antídotos para eso.
Okay, so we know that learning to speak to Jesus is the best antidote of all, because he'll tell you where you're holding yourself back in these stages. That's the best way.
Y la mejor manera es escuchar a Jesús y preguntarle dónde estoy reteniendo en estas etapas.
I mean, you can look at these stages, but if you're not willing to be guided through them, you can spend a lot of time, like you said, eons on all these different steps, you know, delaying and, you know, being in hell, basically.
Sí, si no queremos hacer estos pasos, queremos continuar en el infierno por iones, podemos hacerlo, pero esto es como el camino rápido.
But here are a couple of key principles to remember that will keep it simple.
Bueno, aquí les voy a dar unos principios claves para que sea más simple.
The only test for spiritual awakening, the only test,
El único test para el despertar espiritual es,
okay, it is not some blown out spiritual awakening experience, although you may have them.
y no es, sorry, Kate, I didn't catch it.
The test of spiritual awakening is not some big spiritual blowout experience.
Que las etapas del despertar espiritual no son como grandes cosas, así como que se nos, o sea, va a explotar algo.
Okay, the test.
El test es la prueba.
Unbroken state of peace and joy.
La prueba es un estado de paz inquebrantable y de gozo y de paz inquebrantables.
And if you keep that in mind and not focus on all the different experiences and movements and plays in consciousness.
Y si no estás en ese juego de la conciencia de movimientos,
then you won't fall into a lot of the traps that are going to show up in this working.
y no vas a estar atrapado en en esto que hemos visto.
Okay, so we'll just start off, and it might take 2 sessions by the time Jesus is done. I'll be interested to see what he does with it.
Y parece que vamos a tomar 2 sesiones para mirar esto.
So the first stage, of course, is like Adam fell asleep and now he's, you know, booted out of the kingdom, basically the Garden of Eden with Eve, okay?
Y la primera parte es que Adán está en el jardín. Sorry, Kate, can you say again?
He found himself kicked out of so supposedly God kicked him out of heaven, see?
Es como, supuestamente Dios lo sacó del cielo, sí.
So what we're really learning about is how consciousness evolves from the dreamer, the dreaming of being kicked out of heaven.
Y entonces vamos a ver cómo es en el sueño, creemos que el soñador cree que hemos sido sacados del paraíso.
And then he's kind of in a dream state. We're in a dream state.
Y entonces está en un estado de sueño.
And, you know, the play is to be in the world. You know, the world is the only reality. Okay.
Y entonces dice, el mundo es la única realidad.
There's like a belief, there's a lot of belief of they, them, those, they're the problem. Here's the problem is out there in the world, inside the projection.
Y entonces los problemas están ahí en el mundo, afuera en la proyección.
There's the Taliban, there's all those out there that are doing stuff that if they just, peace would come if we got rid of all of them.
Y están entonces los talibanes que afectan el tema de la paz y the second part was, sorry.
Okay, it's the problem is always about them, they're out there, the projection.
Entonces el problema siempre está en ellos, afuera, en la proyección.
Okay, so this is kind of the rooting in fantasy.
Esto es como mantenernos en la fantasía.
The continual kind of, you know, playing with stories and.
Y es de continuar en las historias, mantenernos en las historias.
Seeking pleasure and pain, constantly seeking pleasure and trying to avoid pain, I guess you could say that.
podría decir que es tratar de buscar placer y evadir el dolor.
Okay. The world feels unsafe.
Este mundo se siente inseguro.
Okay. There's like an addiction to thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Entonces está esta adicción de las emociones y los sentimientos.
I'm asking Jesus about that. He's saying basically that addiction lasts until you're almost unified consciousness, and then that.
Y Jesús dice que estos sentimientos y emociones van a estar hasta que se unifique la conciencia.
Okay. There's that desire, a deep, deep desire to feel helpless to the world, and then try to, get control over it.
Y hay un deseo de sentirnos impotentes frente al mundo y tratar de tener control sobre eso.
Okay, and complete addiction to judgment and evaluation. I'm going to evaluate this and compare it to that, and just total deep, deep sleep.
Y entonces en este sueño profundo estamos adictos a juzgar todo.
Okay, and finally, if you want to transcend that, you just start to admit and see it doesn't work. Something's not working here. And a lot of us, if you come into the course, you probably start having that feeling.
Y entonces, si te das cuenta y ya estás trabajando con el curso, te das cuenta que esto no está funcionando.
Like you can have that split feeling like, can this really be true? Or that sad feeling like, holy smokes, this feels really true,
Y como esto, o sea, en el santo humo, esto se siente demasiado real.
You just slugging every day, hoping for a better day. Hoping for a better day.
Y todos los días estás esperando un mejor día, un mejor día.
Let's be thankful that we're moving out of that through the miracle.
Y vámonos a esto a través de un milagro.
So then you start getting, we start asking, okay, to see another way. So the way out, of course, Jesus is saying, look, you got to start to, there's got to be something else. You almost get desperate. I was like, there's got to be something.
Sí, es como Dios tiene que ser otra cosa porque sí, es como no funciona. O sea, Dios tiene que ser otra cosa diferente a lo que pensamos que.
And you kind of things start coming into your life, like Course in Miracles or other kind of texts, you start, you're kind of hoping you're not getting all of it, you're just kind of hoping for that. That's phase 2.
Y entonces tú como que esperas que llegue algo, por ejemplo, el curso.
Okay. But in that stage, there's still a lot of attachment to people, places, and things that are used by the ego to deny light and happiness.
Entonces, en esta etapa hay mucha adicción o hay mucho apego a la gente, a los lugares.
And you can start looking for like a guru or someone who can save you. See, we're still looking in the play for salvation outside.
Y entonces aún seguimos buscando la salvación afuera, alguien que me venga a salvar.
This is where a lot of you start hunting for someone outside, and then beings get involved with sort of a guru that's not clear. They're not clear, but they're just attracted to the distraction.
Y entonces estamos buscando un gurú que nos salve y eso es una atracción por la distracción.
This is where you start really, again, finding those beings will start coming in. Of course, we know this, they're going to start coming in that are very devoted to that one purpose. You start your peer group starts to be those more devoted.
Y entonces comienzas a buscar tu como grupo que es muy devoto al único propósito, a este único propósito.
Whereas in that first phase, and I wrote it on the sheet, I could see it for myself. I thought some of these people that were doing the spiritual awakening thing were insane.
Y me doy cuenta que muchos de los que estaban buscando ese despertar espiritual están también locos.
Especially those people that went and lived in ashrams, those were really nutty people.
y especialmente estos que se van a los ashram.
Okay, and of course I went and stayed with Muji for quite a while, so that shows me what I know.
Y por ejemplo, yo estuve con Muji un tiempo y él me mostró muchas cosas y ahí me mostraron muchas cosas de eso.
But there just becomes like the smallest crack. Okay, here's a crack that there might be something that is different, that can be different.
Y entonces hay un conocimiento, hay una cosa más allá del conocimiento que nos hace sentir tiene que haber algo diferente.
And this is really common. It was certainly in the experience here. Things will start coming in like illnesses or a new relationship or something just to completely sidetrack the starting to look in.
Sorry, Kay, I didn't catch.
That as soon as you start to look in, things will happen like illnesses or new relationships, romantic relationships to try to sidetrack the looking.
Ok, y entonces cuando comenzamos a mirar comienzan a aparecer enfermedades o relaciones y eso todo aparece para distraernos del
You know, it's like,
mirar.
sorry, my high school sweetheart from 40 years ago just showed up. Now I'm not going to be able to do spiritual looking, full looking, because we're finally together.
Y algo así como mi compañero de colegio que siempre quise que estuviera como me llamara o algo así, aparece.
Now,
Y eso es para distraerme del mirar.
Now, sometimes that can be guided, but most of the times it's going to be coming in just to get more involved and stay stuck in those early stages and be a big distraction.
Y algunas cosas pueden ser guiadas, sin embargo, muchas son como distracciones para mantenernos estancados en las etapas.
This is why really the faster for spiritual awakening you can get into guidance and following guidance, that you're going to stay out of that little machination, that little play in consciousness.
Y por eso es tan importante la guía y seguirla, porque nos va a tener lejos de ese mecanismo de distracción, sí, de estas distracciones.
And this is really where, like, for here, I just didn't have a clue about faith or trust. It hadn't really, it was something that people wrote those words on their wall if they went to church.
Y realmente aquí me doy cuenta que yo no tengo ni la menor idea de lo que era la fe y la confianza. Y simplemente veía los avisos en las iglesias.
But this is really where faith and trust have to kick in, that you are more than the concept you've been holding on about who you think you are.
Y aquí viene el concepto, el hecho de que tú eres mucho más de lo que tú crees que eres.
Okay, and putting your faith in the one who knows, in Jesus.
Y poner tu fe en el que sabe, en Jesús.
And this is like, yeah, I could see for the first quite a number of years, yes, I'm studying the course, but I really, and that's some level of faith and willingness just to go through the course.
Y pues recuerdo que tuve que tener mucha fe y cuando comencé a estudiar el curso. De hecho, se requiere mucha fe y confianza.
But like, you don't know what faith is until you practice it fully.
Pero realmente nunca sabes qué es la fe hasta que la practicas completamente.
Till you get to the point where you're just going to say yes to the assignments and go.
Y vas hasta el punto donde le dices sí a las asignaciones y
But
sigues.
then, part of it is really that observing, Jesus in spiritual traditions, it starts the inward turn toward looking. There's a stage of, I'm really going to start looking, what is this spiritual awakening thing, even if,
Y entonces es el mantenerte en el mirar de qué quiere decir este tema de las etapas del viaje espiritual y mantenerte.
And then, we start reading things like A Course in Miracles and.
Y bueno, y luego comenzamos a leer cosas como el curso de milagros.
The Vedas, the Vedas, other spiritual texts.
y otras líneas espirituales.
You know, and this is really where you got to start paying attention, because you can also go, there's so many spiritual rat holes in this world.
Y ahí es donde tienes que poner toda tu atención porque hay muchas distracciones.
Because the ego loves the little spiritual, to go to a cafeteria spirituality plan.
Y porque al ego le encanta ir a la cafetería de la espiritualidad.
You know, and it serves it up a little bit of that and serves it up a little bit of this.
Y servirte un poquito de esto y un poquito de lo otro.
Okay. But the way out really is what we're coming together to. You know, he's talked about this joining, and then you start looking.
Y entonces viene esto de unirnos y mirar y mirar y mirar.
So you can see it too, probably in your experience, you start watching the daily lessons, you get a consistency is really important, a consistent program.
Y es importante la consistencia en el programa. Entonces, hacer las lecciones diarias
It's critical.
es crítico, es importante hacerlo.
And I know there's teachers out there that say this is all completely unnecessary.
Sin embargo, hay maestros que dicen que, o profesores que dicen que eso no es necesario.
Because just notice who you are and walk out, you know, and just suddenly you realize that there's just one and the world's one. And
Y porque dicen que simplemente ya somos uno, somos el mundo, somos uno con el mundo, o sea, como que
and
no hay mucho que hacer.
there's talk about the one, and there's only the one, and
Y solo hablan del uno y somos el uno.
but we'll go back to the test. The test is there a state of unbroken peace and joy?
Y entonces vamos a la prueba de mirar, este es un estado de paz inquebrantable y gozo y paz inquebrantables.
So again, we're starting to open, we're starting to look at spiritual texts. It'll be Course in Miracles, it'll be Jesus, the New Covenant. You just start kind of exploring and that.
Y es como una etapa de exploración donde comenzamos a mirar textos y libros como el Curso de Milagros, como Jesús un Nuevo Convenio.
Okay. So the challenge for Course in Miracles students is that they start analyzing A Course in Miracles. It becomes, you know, drilling into the text and arguing about it becomes a way of life. So Course in Miracles students get to get, you know, it's part of what traps them at different stages and not transcending.
Entonces para los estudiantes de un curso de milagros que se quedan como analizando y se dejan atrapar ahí, es como una forma de no trascender y quedarse en las etapas.
Is getting stuck in the analysis of A Course in Miracles.
Y es quedarse estancado en el análisis del curso.
The intellectualizing of any kind of text, Course in Miracles, it can be the Vedas, it could be any kind of spiritual, it could be Buddhism.
Y es quedarse en el análisis, ya sea de un curso de milagros, de los libros del budismo.
But there is no replacement for the inner looking. They're just, that, as far as I can tell, I'm just going to ask Jesus, is there any replacement for inner looking? And I hear no.
Y le pregunto a Jesús, ¿hay algún reemplazo para el mirar interior, para mirar profundamente? Y escucho que no.
Okay, so sometimes, okay, we start to get that spiritual stage where we're starting to look, and all of a sudden distractions come up. I'm going to go out and save the world, the hero of the dream. I'm going to stay the hero of the dream. See, here's a spiritual path.
Y entonces, cuando comenzamos a caminar este camino, entonces queremos ser como el salvador del mundo, ser el héroe del sueño.
My spiritual path is going to be, you know, I don't want to pick on whales. It just would come. So I like whales. Save the Whales program.
Y entonces mi espiritual despertar espiritual es como el programa de venga a salvar a las ballenas.
Now, in the way of the world, sometimes the spiritual journey would be interpreted as selfish. You need to get out there and help people. See?
Y es como interpretado como algo egoísta, como, venga, yo tengo que ir y salvar, no egoísta, tengo que ir y salvar las ballenas.
And unless that is guided, specifically guided as a function,
Sorry.
unless your activity is specifically guided as your function,
A menos de que esa sea una función guiada,
the ego stays in false empathy. See, there's someone out there I can save.
y entonces el ego se va a mantener en una falsa empatía de tengo que ir a salvar a alguien allá afuera.
It devolves. The ego makes the world and goes, I can do good in the world. See, I can do it.
Es como yo puedo hacer algo bueno en el mundo, yo puedo hacerlo.
And it stays stuck in the hero of the dream.
Y mantenerte como el héroe del sueño.
Okay, you stay stuck in being a hero in the dream rather than to look, because it keeps stuck, the stage of being stuck in outward looking rather than looking in to see all this creation of a world that needs your help.
Y entonces como que nos mantenemos atrapados en el mundo afuera y no vamos hacia adentro a ver que nosotros estamos fabricando ese mundo que necesita la ayuda.
It's like being stuck in false empathy.
Es como quedarnos atrapados en la falsa empatía.
Okay, so the way to transcend that again is to see and only do what's in guidance.
Y la única forma de trascender esto es mirar y mantenernos en guía.
And you'll see that the way the ego moves, it's service to the whole. It just you just serve by what you are. Just what you are is everything, and you serve.
Y entonces tú sirves al todo de lo que tú eres, a lo que tú eres.
Okay, and so the solution for that, of course, is this introspection to see that salvation, that you're trying to save something outside yourself, to look and see that you're actually already saved.
Y eso, aquí tienes que darte cuenta que ya estás a salvo, que te das cuenta cuando miras que ya estás a salvo.
And then to admit that really your only function is spiritual awakening in this lifetime, to see what's true, your true identity.
Y te das cuenta que tu verdadera función es despertar a quién eres en verdad, quién eres en verdad.
So then we talk about one of the it's a stage that can appear.
Y ahora vamos a hablar de otro etapa.
You know, these things kind of intermix a bit, but is recognition of light, that either an awakening experience or Jesus says light episodes.
Y entonces es el reconocimiento de la luz. Y Jesús habla de las episodios de luz, de ver luz.
And I can see I was waiting to, to little bolts of bright light or something to hit.
Y yo estaba, por ejemplo, esperando que hubiesen grandes luces.
But what he's talking about is it's recognition of that inner light, that there's something here that's unchanging.
Y lo que él habla es de la luz interior, de esa luz que no cambia.
The absolute peace that surpasses understanding.
Y de esa luz que sobrepasa cualquier entendimiento.
And you just may have some kind of awakening experience, but really we're so unaccustomed to it.
Estamos muy acostumbrados como a tener este deseo de tener experiencias de despertar.
And actually so intolerant of that recognition that it can be very fleeting.
We are so intolerant. Sorry?
Intolerant of the recognition of light. It can be very fleeting. It's momentary, holy instant, whoop, gone.
Entonces tenemos estos momentos que son como que esos instantes que se van rápidamente.
Or it can be this kind of For some, holy smokes, I've just realized everything's unified. It's all total and complete.
Y o como esto de Dios, santo, como, mira, todo esto es santo y completo.
See
completo.
but the ego gets hold of that, they'll have an experience, might be experience of peace for a while or joy for a while.
Y entonces el ego va a querer mirar estas experiencias de tuve paz por un rato.
But the ego is going to it's hard to explain. It's going to objectify it. It's going to make it, I'm going to look for the next time I'm going to have peace. See, it's going to make it a future experience.
Entonces el ego va a hacer que esto sea una experiencia futura. Lo voy a lograr en el siguiente.
And I had a big awakening experience and launched myself out into the universe.
Y como tengo una experiencia grande donde me hago uno con el universo.
That's one of the things I love about Mooji. He's very simple about it.
Y eso es lo que me encanta de Mooji, porque él es muy simple con eso.
See what you are right now.
Dice, mira lo que eres ya ahora mismo.
So you don't have to go to you're right in that you don't have to go to a foreign nation to see what you are. You can look right now. Oh, is the light here? Yes.
Y no tienes que ir a un lugar externo y simplemente darte cuenta que la luz está aquí y ya.
The reason you might have to go to a foreign nation is because you're going to be looking, it's a way to look in your mind and see where you don't want to be that light.
Y esto de ir a una nación fuera es tu deseo de no ver que la luz está aquí.
So that's like a hang up stage for a lot of being. I'm asking Jesus because he's got to tell me, I don't know.
Creo que esta es una estación, una etapa que muchos seres se quedan aquí.
But yes, that is a big hanging state because we go, oh, I've reached nirvana.
Y como es como, ay, logré el nirvana, ¿sí?
So we go back and then we look at the test. What is the test of spiritual awakening?
Y volvemos entonces al test de cuál es el test para el despertar espiritual.
A consistent state of peace and joy.
Una consistente estado de paz y gozo.
Okay, so it's not to say those things are bad. It's really, you're happy. Like when you look down, and look down, wait, I don't have a body. I don't even know what a body is, that kind of stuff. Okay, it's helpful.
Y darse cuenta de que, bueno, no soy un cuerpo, eso es útil.
But you'll see, as they say at Sahaja, Mr. Mind, Mr. Wrong Mind.
Y como dicen en el Monte Sahaja, el Señor mente equivocada.
He seems to come back and be beating you up.
Y parece volver y morderte.
Okay, you seem like you're getting beat up again. Are you really upset? Or it's like, what happened? You hear it in satsang.
Y tú lo escuchas en el satsang y bueno, ¿qué pasó? O sea, con esa experiencia.
Over and over at the microphone going, I don't know, it was fantastic. It was one, but it's gone. It's missing. I can't find it. My awakening lit.
Y es como, mira, van al micrófono y dicen, no, mira, esto fue maravilloso, fue genial, pero se ha ido.
I mean, and I went up in front of Mooji. You might be able to find this somewhere. I went up, to talk about, spiritual awakening.
Sorry, did you go to talk?
Yeah, I went to satsang in Rishi. Now y'all all going to be looking for this. But I went up in satsang and, I was going to talk about how great the light is and all this stuff.
Entonces yo fui al satsang y entonces comencé a hablar de lo maravilloso que era todo esto.
But in truth, really, before I stood up, I said, may whatever comes out of my mouth serve the whole. That was my full intention. Serve the whole, whatever happens.
Y entonces lo que le dije, mira, sea lo que vaya a decir, deja que sea para el servicio de todos.
And I just got up there and it was gone. It was like this wave of fear. You know,
Y
where was it?
entonces
Where's
como,
the light?
y entonces vino como esta ola de fuego y yo dije, pero ¿dónde está la luz?
Because there's still desires that deny light, you know, there's still that needed to be healing. So you could either look at that, because I wasn't interpreting that well.
Entonces me daba cuenta que aún habían cosas por sanar. Y bueno,
Okay.
yo no lo interpreté así en ese momento.
All right. So, you know, and I really, a lot of anger came up after, you know, I couldn't hear what he was saying. It was like,
Y había un ruido así como una oveja que no escuchaba lo que decía.
but it was used, you know, it was used to go deep into the mind and see what was at play, you know, to clear. And and that's an important stage that we have to get to.
Y entonces eso fue usado para mirar y sanar. Y en esta etapa es importante mantenernos.
So like I could see I was starting to go kind of in the story about the experience.
Y no quedarnos como en la historia de la experiencia.
You know, it was like a firestorm coming.
Como una tormenta de fuego.
Mucho fuego, right? Big fire coming up. But at that point, I said, no, I'm going to look at this, look what's under this. And that's the point you have to get to in the mind where you're going to go, no, I'm going to look at this.
Y entonces, sin embargo, yo dije, bueno, no, voy a mirar esto. No me quedé con ese fuego ahí que ardía.
See, that's when you're moving into a stage of more spiritual maturity.
Y así es que te mueves a un estado de madurez en las etapas de la espiritualidad.
You know, and not just taking the ego story ride wherever it wants to go.
Y no dejarnos llevar por las historias del ego.
Okay, so you can have these beautiful, and they're, you know, they can be beatific, but just we just go back to the test.
Y podemos, beatific.
We go back to the test. Am I in a state of unbroken peace and joy?
Y entonces volvemos al test de la paz inquebrantable.
And of course, we speak to Jesus, the one who knows, the voice for wholeness.
Y por supuesto hablamos con la voz que lo sabe todo, que es Jesús.
Jesus, is there more for me to see?
Jesús, ¿hay algo más que tenga que ver?
But those, you know, those like light episodes, or they're, you know, it's like that peace, noticing how peaceful the light is.
Y entonces en esos episodios de luz, nota lo pacífico que es esa luz.
Recognizing that there's no body and there's no time.
Y reconocer que no hay tiempo, que no hay cuerpo.
It's like, again, and for me, when I got it, that if I wasn't experiencing that 24/7, then there was a desire not to experience that peace 24/7.
Y para mí fue muy útil darme cuenta que si yo no estaba experimentando la paz 7/24 era porque yo deseaba no experimentarla.
So then the mind starts moving into a stage of more earnest looking.
Y entonces comenzamos a movernos a un estado de mayor honestidad.
You know, now for some that could, if they're in the early stages, that might be kind of the personal development. There are a lot of beings that kind of explored, you know, different kinds of healing modalities.
Y entonces los que están de pronto en las etapas preliminares van a estar como en el desarrollo del personaje.
Like Landmark or Tony Robbins or these kinds of.
Como Tommy Robbins o Glenmark.
Okay, but you begin to start to see and be willing to see how consciousness plays with beliefs, you know, and acting like beliefs and stories are true.
Y ver que la mente está jugando este juego de las historias.
You really need to then start uncoupling that, really, to get the because otherwise you're kind of going forward and going back, playing a little bit in consciousness. I'm going to play a little bit in over here. It's like dabbling in divinity.
Sí, es como, si no estás en esto, vas a estar como duditativo en jugar un rato en el juego de la conciencia y el tema espiritual.
So eventually you got to get those who are sincere about it are going to get to the point where this is going to take some serious exploration.
Estos seres que tienen que llegar a un momento donde dicen, tengo que tomar esto en serio, esta exploración en serio.
And maybe dedicated exploration is a better word.
Y quizá la mejor palabra es una dedicación, la palabra es mejor dedicación.
Okay, so now we're getting to the real kind of the keys of what it's going to take in terms of what it really takes to go all the way for those who really don't want to dabble anymore with the devil.
Y para todos los que quieren seguir el camino completamente y no bailar con el diablo.
Okay, so what's going to happen is now this is going to be divided into two parts, and then we'll go through like, okay, when you're ready to really lock and load and go for God.
Y bueno, esto lo vamos a dividir en dos partes, y cuando estén decididos de ir por Dios.
You know, because the early stages, I didn't realize, I finished Course in Miracles and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm done. You know, where's the spiritual awakening, Jesus?
Sí, y como las primeras etapas es como, mira, ya lo hice, bueno, ¿dónde está el despertar espiritual? Jesús.
Yeah, I was riding a little tricycle at that point. I'm still riding a tricycle.
Tricycle, what is that?
A little tricycle, you know, the little bikes little kids ride that's got 3 wheels.
Ya, y como es como estar montándonos en la bicicletica de las 3 llantas.
So I'm just going to open it for the floor to see if there are any questions about like the first stages of starting to kind of get in your spiritual groove.
Y no sé si tengan preguntas acerca de lo de las, digamos, las primeras etapas del viaje espiritual.
Or, you know, if anyone wants to share.
¿Alguien quiere compartir algo de esto?
And then we'll go to part 2 on Wednesday.
Y luego iremos a la segunda parte el miércoles. Okay, how many stages we saw today?
Well, you know, there's like Jesus isn't going to cut it into there. I don't want to say, okay, there's going to be how many stages because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Le estaba preguntando aquí que cuántas, digamos, etapas habíamos visto y me dice que, digamos que Jesús no funciona así como que 1, 2, 3, pero no sé si tienen preguntas al respecto.
But really, it's more of we can, like some people go, okay, I'm going to graduate from 1st grade to 2nd grade.
Y hay seres que les gusta mirar, me gradué del primero y voy a pasar al segundo nivel.
But this is more, you can't really evaluate the falling away of the untrue, you know, you can't put a yardstick next to it and go, okay, where am I in the falling the way of the untrue?
Y como que no hay una forma de medir esto, de lo que, de salir de lo que no es cierto, de lo que no existe.
You know, and he's going to give you the specific steps.
Y él te va a dar los pasos específicos.
So what of course we're going to explore is this is the level of commitment that the choice to be how committed to God and his kingdom.
Y aquí lo que vamos a mirar es qué tan comprometido estás con el reino de los cielos.
Because the higher the commitment, it just like bypass everything and you just start looking, follow, and it, you know, just cuts all that time out and all those extra stages out.
Y lo que ahorra tiempo es esto de mantenernos preguntando y siguiendo la guía y manteniéndonos y mirando.
Because the next couple of seemingly stages are where all the resistance is, all the reasons why in the play to avoid miracles.
Porque los otros pasos lo que vamos a ver es cómo queremos evadir los milagros.
And refusing to follow.
Y rechazar y rehusarnos a seguir.
You know, and refusing to say yes to the last unanswered question.
Y rehusarnos a decir sí a la última pregunta no contestada.
Am I willing to see what I've denied because it's true?
Estoy dispuesto a ver lo que he negado porque es la verdad.
So the next stages are kind of, if you can think of them, that is really the transcendence of steps to transcend the arrogance, actually.
Y porque de estas últimas etapas es como para trascender la arrogancia.
You know, because the I know better than God stage.
Y como que yo sé más las etapas que Dios.
I've got a better plan than God's stages. See those?
Tengo un mejor plan que las etapas de Dios.
That's the, you know, that's like you know how you have a big pipe with water flowing through it and you got a big constriction right in the middle of it, and so it gets back jammed up.
Y es como que viene una agua y hay una cosa que no la deja pasar, como la aprieta. Y no la deja pasar.
No to God just holds that thing.
Como el no a Dios.
The miracle constipation place.
Como el lugar del estreñimiento de los milagros.
Because if you say yes, and I'm not going to accept anything other than this, there's nothing that's going to stop you from seeing it.
Y porque si tú dices sí y nada te va a detener de que veas esto.
I love that about Ajasanti. He just went out in his backyard and sat in a tent, you know, like under the Bodhi tree, like Buddha, you know, I'm going to look until I see this.
Y me encanta esto de Ajasanti que what happened with Ajasanti?
He went out and sat in a tent in his backyard every day until he saw it.
Y él se sentó ahí como en el jardín hasta que vio.
And that's not what I'm recommending. It's just, or Jesus is suggesting. It's just that it's an expression of the determination to see what's true, and that's what it takes.
No es que lo esté sugiriendo, simplemente esto es mostrar la determinación que se requiere para esto.
Basically, it takes being unwilling to accept anything other than truth.
Y es algo así como no aceptar nada que no sea la verdad.
So that cuts out the middleman of any stages.
Y así vamos a evitarnos muchos pasos.
So, do we have any other questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?